How to Create a Glitch Monologues Season 26 Chapter 5. This is Season 26 of How to Create a Glitch in the Matrix Monologues Episode 5. In this episode, we will be discussing two topics. The first arises out of the implications of Episodes 1 through 3, to our calculation of waves of historical cycles. The second is a new topic, the discussion of what happens when you act on a feeling, instead of inhibiting it. In a past episode, last season, we explained that you can calculate the distance an object can move from your person, where that object is an object of release corresponding to a rhythm of bodily cycle. So for example, let's say you check your phone every 5 minutes for 2 minutes. The task time is 2 minutes, the period is 5 minutes, the ratio is 0.4. Since we know the period, we can plug that into the equation d/t equals v. Since a person's maximum velocity from rest is 1.4 meters per second, we know that the furthest that the object can get from you during that period is 420 meters. Now, drawing upon episodes 1 to 3 of this season, we know that every inhibited feeling ultimately happens. So, the period, which we can thus call the inhibition cycle, is actually the period of inhibition, during which time the task may ultimately recur. Thus, if we treat the distance the object can travel from our person as the wavelength of a wave of possible task execution, and the task time as the period of this task execution, we can calculate the velocity of the wave corresponding to the particular task. So, in the above example, if distance or wavelength equals 420 meters, and frequency equals 1/120th of a second or 0.0833, then we can say that the velocity of the execution task is equal to 3.5 meters per second, roughly twice the speed of walking. Now, let's apply this to historical cycles, as explained in Episode 4. If the cycle time is equal to 2 months, the cycle period is 10 years. The frequency is thus 1.9 times 10 to the exponent -7. The distance is equal to 4.415 times 10 to the exponent +8. The velocity is equal to 83 meters per second or 301.986 km per hour. This tells us that the wave travels at this speed through the system. The second topic I would like to discuss is the architecture of what happens when, rather than inhibiting a feeling, you act on it. Not in relation to the cycles of bodily rhythm, but with regards to feelings in general. As a starting point, acting on a feeling creates an experience channel, a pathway, shaped by the nature of the feeling which originates it. In other words, the content of the thoughts which occur in the shadow of the feeling will be molded, shaped by the feeling which preceded them. As an example, let's say you are angry because your girlfriend has stood you up. Let's say that as a retaliation, you decide to take a trip without them. The content of the experience which follows will be molded by the content of the feeling which preceded it. Since we know that your consensuality creates the non-intersection of your internal mind with reality, acting on a perception of another, being dialectical in nature, entangles you with your non-consensuality. That non-consensuality, being that it represents the intersection of your mind with the substance of reality, predisposes a dialectical reaction into your experiences. You will project a dialectical reaction, based upon the fulfillment of your shadow self. All non-physical feelings, that is, feelings not pursuant to a bodily cycle, produce these experience channels defined by the enmeshing of our self in the dialectical projections of our non-consensuality, bringing out our shadow self. Now, since we already established that the rhythms of our intersections with others can be quantified according to the same technique of ratio of task time over period, we can observe that in the preceding example, we are talking about an archetypal or preferential substitution. That is to say, the increase in the period, as the substitution occurs, due to the meeting being cancelled by your girlfriend, represents a missed execution. This missed execution represents a loss of confidence, the breaking of a conjoined expectation contract, and the preferential linking of your girlfriend with someone else, or according to some other rhythm. This means that your anger at your girlfriend is a natural consequence of the decrease in the rhythm ratio. What this tells us is that emotional reactions can be described mathematically as changes in ratios of certain rhythms, or substitution events. That's the end of the podcast for today. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment and subscribe.